Не, дай ми девелопер коментарите.
Hello and welcome to the Superliminal Developer Commentary.
Това ще ми е
I'm Alex,
интересно.
Game Director of Superliminal. Myself and the rest of the team will be popping up every now and then as you play. With subtitles open, you can see who is talking and what their role on the game is.
Успешно майндфът, да. Много ти
Hi, my
благодаря,
name's
доктор.
Chris. I was the producer and designer on Superliminal.
Hi, this is Will O'Neill, and I was the writer on Superliminal.
Okay, so that very beginning of Superliminal is actually one of the last parts we finished. Throughout development, we created so many different introductions to the game. Not all of them were cutscenes, like that one, but we ended up feeling that that in-game video sequence offered a really smooth on-ramp that let us set the framework for what's to come. By keeping it grounded in the world, rather than just a video, we felt it to be a good way to get you...
Hi, I'm Logan, and I'm level designer on Superliminal. A difference with the main resizing mechanic in this game is how much freedom it gives the player. This puzzle is a good example. In most puzzle games, if you put an object on a button in this scenario, the object doesn't need to be moved anymore. The key to unlock the door removes the key from the problem space. But unfortunately, in our game, you can just turn around and grab the object from any distance away. Therefore, we've gotten good at adding barriers in many places so people won't carry an object through all puzzles forever.
Orientation protocol, and that my voice has been explicitly
Hi,
chosen.
my name is Alex, and I perform gameplay programming on Superliminal.
Team. I do not care.
When I joined the project, there weren't really any menus except the absolute bare minimum to get the player into the game, and there wasn't any keyboard support either. So the first order of business was to add proper mouse and keyboard support to the title and pause menus. The hardest part was supporting switching between the two on the fly, because you never know when the player is going to do it, and it could lock them out of the game. With that foundation laid, I started working on controller support. To make controllers feel as good as mouse and keyboard, I wrote a bunch of code to modify how controller input is interpreted. For mouse and keyboard, input is more or less one-to-one mapped to player movement. So you move the mouse and the camera turns. But that doesn't feel good with controllers. Trying to pick up a very small object, say a chess piece, could be quite finicky.
You have deviated from the orientation pathway.
In the end, I made it so looking around accelerates the longer the stick is pressed, and behaves differently based on whether you are looking vertically or horizontally, and also while you are holding an object. Probably the biggest change was a quote-unquote auto-lock feature, which draws the focus to a grabbable object as your cursor gets closer to it. All these changes culminated in controllers feeling much more accurate and satisfying.
Ева си майката.
When we were playtesting, we realized that players were getting tripped up on different aspects of the resize mechanic. So we tried to make each puzzle in this level teach a specific action. The cheese puzzle is our way of forcing players to make something from very small to very big, and the puzzle after that is the opposite. This broken window puzzle is to teach you how to make things small and fit through a hole, but at a distance, so you can't simply walk up to it.
We had this looping hallway for a while, but it was very nondescript and players got confused on where they were and they would get turned around. So our artist Steve helped mock up some windows and landmarks so people can tell where they are. Immediately, we found that playtesters weren't getting lost anymore and understood the moment. Our core game mechanic is so novel that we immediately drew comparisons to other quasi-sci-fi puzzle games. And, since our game is about playing with and subverting expectations, we wanted to lean into that and start the first level with a kind of test chamber aesthetic, and immediately break that going forward. Narratively, this space is what Dr. Pierce planned to have his dream therapy program look like before it all went wrong.
Recognition on your completion of the Somnasculpt orientation. You did it. To maximize the
Днеска се
time
опита да
allotted
ме
for
бие
your
на София, не
therapeutic
знае, че
journey,
игра
please
срещу
do
човек,
not
където
delay in
имаше
proceeding through the
първо
final
място
doorway
преди
as
теб.
indicated.
Мене GeoGuessr спря да ми харесва в момента, в който хората изродяха супер много на играта. Изродите изродяха, стана компетитив игра и трябва много зубрене. Това ме отказва от GeoGuessr. Ще мина още един път с девелопър коментарито.
The reason we ended up with this sleep clinic section is because we wanted to convince players that they might have actually woken up from the dream. So we don't have any dreamlike mechanics you can play with until you get to the vending machine. Later on, this...
We want the first moment of people walking into this hallway to feel different from other first-person puzzle games. This hallway is designed to feel surprisingly warm, which helps make it feel a little bit surreal and a little bit odd. Throughout the game, we're bouncing between these two feelings, the feelings of warmth and coldness.
What? Какво е това място, бе? Не съм го гледал, но звучи интересно. Айде, кефи да се пуснат да ми се падне село Юлиева. Много яко.
Hello, my name is Dr. Glenn Pierce, and I'd like to talk to you about being special. So special, in fact, that we have no idea where you are. But not to worry, we're working on it.
Добре, как го изпуснах това? Да.
Hi, my name is Ryan, and I was the principal artist on Superliminal. Optical's pink hotel hallway was the first area we nailed down visually and served as a starting point for how we approached the art for the rest of the game. We wanted enough decoration for it to be interesting to the player, yet it couldn't have too much visual noise, or else the player would get lost and overwhelmed. We made interactable objects the complementary color of the surrounding environment, which helped them pop more and feel more important. After we were happy with how this part of the game felt, the rest of the locales came together much quicker, and we required less iteration.
But please keep moving forward, and hopefully you prefer frequent updates to being reminded that you are completely lost.
Как сме, началник? Много добре, благодаря. Слушам девелопър коментарите. Това е много яко.
Hi,
My name is Phil Fortier, and I was the graphics programmer on Superliminal, and I also worked on some of the Easter egg design.
Before you grab the moon in the next room, please notice that it looks quite far away. An interesting fact is that it actually isn't that far at all. But because the moon's position is moving with your position, it seems to be infinitely far away.
You should also find a variety of emergency exit signs that should lead you to them. Will all of this work? Absolutely. Hello, my name is Dr. Glenn Pierce. In the event that this elevator does not wake you up, please don't interact with anything that strikes you as psychologically significant, as we will no longer have any way of controlling it. For example, if you see your parents, please punch them in the face as hard as you can and immediately run away.
Знаете ли защо жените имат 2 гънки повече на мозъка? Защо? Трябва да се спро спидрен след като да разцъка да стане. Искам да изслушам девелопър коментарите, това ми е интересно. Това беше хубава игра. От не геймери за не геймери.
This is an automated message for all patients who attempted to use an alternate pathway to access the next phase of somnasculpt therapy, but who have become trapped in a dream state paradox instead. Your decisions imply a failure of orientation, which reflects negatively on the standard orientation protocol. You will rectify this failure immediately.
So the standard orientation protocol character is obsessed with proper orientation, and that makes her kind of thematically antagonistic to the idea of truth being, intrinsically tied to perspective. But to me, the fun part of it was writing her as being cruel without there being any actual malice to it. Like, she has nothing against you personally. Her programming simply can't see beyond proper orientation as being the only thing of any value to a somnasculpt patient whatsoever.
Between the colorful dream spaces, we have these, what we call back areas. These back areas serve as the backdrop to everything. They are where the dream spaces are built, and also the service hallways in between them. We wanted to give them a colder, darker feel to contrast with other spaces in the game. But we also wanted to keep a man-made feel, as if people were just here moving things, creating these spaces, doing work a second before you arrived.
Yeah, it reminded me a little of Charlie Kaufman's Synecdoche, New York. That idea of building a world inside of another world.
Please note that a reluctance to volunteer for
Not all of our interesting perspective moments can be built into puzzles. Some are just great moments that break your expectations. This level interprets a cube in multiple different ways, and even though none of these are difficult puzzles, they all work together to create a whole series of back-to-back surprise moments. It was fun finding the balance of making it feel like someone was messing with you, without making it feel like the cube is sentient.
Готина е играта. Много ми харесва да има девелопър коментари. Си това е бахти доброто нещо. Да се направи дев коментари. За да не се ред по двора. Тут дори не го разбрах защо има две гънки.
Hello, my name is Dr. Glenn Pierce, and despite touring the Waterfall Serenity Zone...
This level came about because we explored the idea of the game being an anthology of different stories, one story for each level. This level was the horror level, and I immediately knew what it would be about. getting the player to be scared of their own shadow. None of the scares are actually real, but one aspect we wanted to explore and draw from was movie scene cuts. Basically, how a match cut in a movie might make sense in a game. This next moment is a good example. Carefully watch the cloud in the distance. You'll see that it cuts to a new scene.
Boo. Boo. Boo.
Boo, boo, boo. Мърдър. Тук в тъмното ли се влизаш? Не, сам бях, май. Не, на другата страна. What? Не съм насам, бе. What? Това да вземеш ачивмента... Това е оня пъзъл, къде не паднах първия път. Така. Мислех, че ще умра, то тая игра май не мога да умреш, това е интересно.
Hello, my name is Dr. Glenn Pierce, and I'd like to talk more about the feelings of worthlessness and self-doubt I mentioned before. You feel this way because you want the kind of happy life you see all around you, the kind you know everyone else is enjoying. And that's exactly why we're here to help.
Това ли беше много готиния пъзъл? Това е много яко, човек, много ми хареса. Как са го направили? Тук беше... пешката.
Warning. The object used in this puzzle was originally a flashlight, but unfortunately, because of how the mechanic works, it always placed the flashlight at the end of the room, which is not a particularly useful position for a flashlight. We tried a couple of things, but finally decided to switch to an object that could glow from both ends.
Сега трябваше да се върна ли? Къде ми беше завоя, бе? Е тук. Нямаш ли такова заболяване, дето виждаш всичко хипер голямо, ами хипер малко? Смисъл?
Did you know that unintentional multi-dream layering occurs in less than 1% of patients?
When I prototyped this part, there was going to be a shadow of a monster on the wall that turned out to be a bunch of random objects when the lights turned on. The shadow always looked silly though, so eventually the reveal became the blood actually being red paint.
Чай, сега искам да се върна за пешката. Защото миналия път се правила пешката.
When I prototyped this part, there was going to be a shadow of a monster on the wall that turned out to be a bunch of random objects when the lights turned on. The shadow always looked silly though, so eventually the reveal became the blood actually being red paint.
Улум. Много искам да разбера за това. За пешката. На къде ме води пешката? Това е единственото място, където може да тракбакнеш. Сигурно има ачивмент за това. Как ли се върти тук? What? Софтлокнах ли? The fuck? Синдром на Алиса в страната на чудесата. Това звучи интересно. Аз не мога да разбера, софтлокнах ли се, какво стана? What?
Hi there, I'm Steve, the art director of Superliminal.
This room was one of the biggest technical challenges we had in the game.
Originally, this was one huge room, but turning our dynamic lights all on abruptly killed the frame rate, so we ended up chopping the room into smaller areas so we could hide and unhide objects from the player's view once the lights turn back on.
Ей, то RTX, да, какво играш? Сашо доктора ми подари много интересна игра.
We wanted to do a unique alarm clock for each level, but this is the only one that survived that idea.
Началника позволише
Attention,
пратта линка.
Dr. Pierce requires you to note the following risks of dream overexposure. Significant memory loss, both quantitative and qualitative. Hallucinations of dreaded or annoying objects. Unrealistic beliefs about the lengths of hallways. And other side effects which have not yet been discovered or which cannot be understood.
Тук пак е смайли. В смисъл не е било нещо странно, просто мерникът и тук става смайли фейс.
Let's talk about the smiley face. Because our goal was to break people's expectations, we prototyped a lot of weird moments like these. Some of them didn't work because they felt too meta. They would actually take people out of the game experience. This one, however, stayed because it was just subtle enough and playful enough that you could see it as a bout of insanity.
Ара, What? Просто трябва да премести основното и да го рейт кликна. Окей, това е полезно. А как си паднах след това в тази стая, ще остане мистерия. Или тази стая я пропуснах. Как трябва да кача зелена ябълка там? Добре, това наистина как се прави? Мисля, аз не мога да го търкалям. Тук май си и за кликър. Да, верно, тук как качвам ябълка горе? Това е много интересен въпрос. Да, това е за кликър. Това наистина хака е кликър.
Warning. Dr. Pierce is frantically submitting numerous spelling and grammar mistakes into the standard orientation protocol in a desperate attempt to counsel you. I have no subroutine to correct these errors, but I cannot compromise the integrity of the standard orientation protocol. You will not receive these messages. They would not make sense regardless. Attention. Dr. Pierce continues to input significant...
Players may notice the motif of the repeating purple hallway found throughout Clone. We wanted the player to have this feeling of, have I been here before? This seems pretty familiar.
R has never been...
Lots of credit here to Max Hoarth, who plays the role of Dr. Glenn Pierce, for really nailing this bizarre line in an impressively short number of takes. We were totally prepared to have him record the words.
А то лоудинг анимацията е рандъм, тя не е де-факто лоудинг анимация. Не мога да цъкна през текстурата слова.
This room kind of happened by accident. We originally just put a cloud video texture as placeholder as a way to expand on the cloud motif. It ended up working so well and fitting the tone so well that we made this a private theater room in the sleep clinic. It evokes a nostalgic and relaxing but slightly creepy feeling which seemed to fit the game perfectly.
Most recently, and discontinue whatever you were doing immediately prior to that.
Hey, this is Matt. I did the music and sound. The sound effects that probably took the most tweaking were definitely all associated with the resizable objects. For them, I had to make a collision matrix so that the sound of you dropping a box or a cube would smoothly change from its smallest to its largest size and anywhere in between. So to achieve that, there were lots of different layers of the sounds, lots of automated pitch shifting, speeding up, slowing down, lots of crossfading between different layers of the sound, and a lot of trial and error to get it feeling right inside the game.
Сега тук трябваше да стана малък. И ставам малък, като изляза пак през вратата. Чакай, какво бъркам? Така, влизам в малката къщичка. Така. И ако излизам пак от малката къщичка и съм same size. Но трябва да вляза тук. Чай, това първия път го схванах веднага. Чакай малко. Я дайте Жокер. Какво направих първия път? Защото аз тук ако излизам пак през това. Така. Имам стълби. След стълбите имам две врати. Ляво е малки изход, дясно е входа. Така. Така. Трябва да изляза малък. Как излизам малък? Тук втори портал имаше ли някъде? Къщите са две. Аз точно това се чудам, а не виждам втората. Вратите са две, къщата е една. Първия път като тръгна да го цъкам, веднага го схванах. Сега съм объркан. Да правя по-голяма, не мога. Аз съм прекалено голям за вътре в къщата. Това с куфарите мисля, че беше стаята. Да, с куфарите там е изхода, ама... Как... От една къща имаш препятствие по пътя. Тук няма втора къща. Не, буквално една и съща къща, просто има два различни изхода. Между другото не се ебам, стъкнах се. Гличнах се в текстури. Така. Така.
The sound effects that probably took the most tweaking were definitely all associated with the resizable objects. For them, I had to make a collision matrix so that the sound of you dropping a box or a cube would smoothly change from its smallest to its largest size and anywhere in between. So to achieve that,
Излез от вратата и я направи голяма.
lots of automated pitch shifting, speeding up, slowing down, lots of crossfading between different layers of the
сега
sound,
станах малък.
and a lot of trial and error
Точно
to get it
така.
feeling right inside the game.
И сега като изляза... Не преба го. Мале, аз съм малумен. Мале, това е много лесен пъзъл, човек. Направо не знам как брейнфартнах. Направо не знам как брейнфартнах току-що. Да, тъпанар съм. Буквално брейнфартнах.
Hello, my name is Dr. Glenn Pierce. In addition to continuing and discontinuing as mentioned earlier, please also disregard any unsettling experiences that you may have recently had. Everything should have now reverted to being soothing and therapeutic. If this is not the case, you may be receiving this message in error.
Лига се връща в 6. А пач ли има? Бъвкат ли юми?
Hello, my name is Dr. Glenn Pierce, and I'd like to read you my favorite inspirational quote by me. The worst thing you can do is focus
This
on...
puzzle existed for a long time, but it took a while to figure out what the art was going to be because the bouncy castle used to just be a weird L-shaped block. Eventually we landed on the pool motif and the bouncy castle and added a little bit where you go inside the vent.
Whatever you do, don't focus on that.
Не. Това е много фидли пъзъл, между другото. Трябва да го оцелиш тъмън правилно. Ти лут ли си? What? Верно ли фейлнах пъзъла така? Ева си майката. Човек, това е много, много недобър пъзъл. Това наистина е много фидли пъзъл. И понеже замъкът е огромен, това наистина... Това е най-слабия пъзъл в играта. Просто не е добър. Цялата му механика е лоша. Добре, защо не стъпва на това, бе, човек? Направи го малък. Как да го направя малък? Аз не мога да го направя малък там. Аз наистина не мога да го направя по-малък. И изведнъж се озовавам супер огромен. И не мога да си сваля мишката достатъчно ниско. Просто е лош пъзъл.
Because we have portals that you can resize, the player can freely change their own size. This actually created a design problem because you could never predict what size the player was supposed to be. And if we dynamically changed the size of the geometry later on in the level, things could break really easily. So instead, we added these portals, like this doorway over here, which changes size in order to resize you back to the normal scale of a human.
You're now headed in the right direction, and we should be able to initiate the emergency exit protocol shortly.
Това са двата слаби елемента в играта. Това и миналото. Сега тук не съм сигурен, минавам ли? Мисля, че съм прекалено голям. Мисля, че това е правилният размер. И ако това е правилният размер, би трябвало да е много по-лесно да се кача с двата портала. Отколкото само с единия. Това е пъзъл, от който не ми харесва. се беше.
Changing the player size through portals has a couple of weird side effects when it comes to programming. You have the obvious ones, such as needing to change the player collider, movement speed, jump height, and mantling distance. You have a couple of less obscure ones, such as needing to change the camera's far and near clip planes, so geometry is less likely to clip through your camera as you get smaller. Another interesting one we'll talk about later. Another weird thing about player resizing is that gravity is actually constant across all sizes. So imagine you're in the perspective of an ant, and a giant shoe is coming down from the sky to step on you. That shoe in your mind might take a couple seconds, but in real life, it would be instant. Whatever size you are, large objects traveling through space should feel like they are moving slowly. So when we change the player size, we're actually also adjusting gravity.
So that's my cat. His name is Finn, and he's a good boy. And we only had a day or two left before finishing the game, and we needed to figure out what kind of posters to put in our elevator. So I decided to have a little bit of fun with it, and this is by far my favorite, of course. The Cardboard Lovers Association also makes a nice little nod to the cardboard dollhouse.
Не, изиграх я Relentless, изиграх я. В момента я изигравам за втори път с Developer Commentary. Да, не е толкова дълга.
The emergency exit protocol is the shortest lived character in the game, but my heart really goes out to him. Because just like a triangle player in an orchestra, he has precisely one job and he waits patiently for his moment to do it, only of course to have it snatched away just as that moment arrives. I think many people can identify with this feeling.
Error analysis complete. You are exhibiting signs consistent with an increase in fear, hopelessness, and frustration. This is inconceivable, as somnasculpt therapy is proven to correlate with a decrease in these emotions. Hypothesis: patient was improperly oriented. Conclusion: impossible. Reformulating.
Сега тук просто трябваше да чакам,
Improved
нали?
hypothesis. Patient requires additional somnasculpt therapy. Conclusion: emergency exit protocol cannot proceed. Emergency exit protocol has been emergency destroyed. Instruction: continue with somnasculpt therapy indefinitely on an independent basis, as all orientation resources have been exhausted. This concludes your standard orientation protocol. Goodbye.
Та игра някой я препоръча. Сашо доктора ми я подари. Не ми я препоръча. Директно ми я изпрати в Steam. И щом Сашо доктора е казал... Но е хубава игра. Добър майндфък е на първо изиграване. Аз съм сигурен, че Сашо доктора просто иска да ме види как ще се справя и как ще реагирам. Доставам му мазохистично удоволствие да си блъскам главата.
Before you begin the first phase of therapy, I'd like to briefly describe the finite and fragile nature of the dream state.
We had all these surprise moments prototyped, and so I wondered what it would feel like if we had a whole level of surprise moments. I wanted it to be fast-paced. The working title for this level is Chase. This is the boss level of the game, basically. It's inspired by the third act of the movie Brazil, how it gets crazier and faster paced over time.
Of course, nothing is more challenging than the difficulty of changing perspective, of fundamentally altering your perceptions in a way that will enable you to face dire, trial-by-fire scenarios with solutions that could not be found otherwise.
Сега трябваше да взема това купче. И сега падам, да. Почвам да гледам купчето, търся перспективата и то ме обръща. What? Софтлокнах ли се тук? Аз мога да ги местя.
The music throughout the game really goes through a significant transformation, but the piano is always there to guide you. Even as the music becomes darker and more electronic, it always has the melody, or at least a really significant role to play. It changes as you progress through the game. I switched to different types of piano,
Как беше стрима?
piano Bill Evans famously recorded on. Later, switching to a more modern sounding instrument. I double it with prepared piano sounds sometimes, I use felt piano, and gradually more reverbs and delays as the game evolves. But at the heart of each piece is the piano.
Перфе. Мъчиха се на една игра 7 часа. Заеби. И аз се мъчих на една игра, ама не 7 часа, доста бързо я починих. Но беше много интересна. Кери глас, ако знаеш. Nope. Това е толкова гениално. Как слагаш фигурата отгоре и тя става просто част от стената.
Finally, while we respect the unique progress of every patient, you must understand that it is possible to completely exhaust...
The original idea for Labyrinth was to explore earlier areas, but with a new spin on them. Sometimes it was a matter of adding new interactive moments to turn things on their head, while for others, we would take existing locales and give them a new look of paint and set dressing.
Тази игра е мега
Something
добра, да.
familiar, yet fresh and unexpected.
Беше изгаврена.
That instability is perfect for the mood and for general world building too. Conceptually, different patients would be bringing different experiences with them to the dream state. We wanted...
Hi, my name is Phil Fortier, and I was the graphics programmer on Superliminal, and I also worked on some of the Easter egg design. So when I joined the project, this infinite elevator sequence wasn't actually infinite. It was just a very large block of, 20 by 10 elevators. And the performance, as a result, wasn't very good. And the illusion could be ruined if you walked all the way to one side. So one of the things I did was actually make it infinite. So there's a much smaller block of real elevators, and the player gets teleported seamlessly by portals on each end. And so the end result is an infinite elevator sequence that you can just go in one direction forever.
Please listen carefully for the sound of an alarm clock, which will automatically play if you are approaching a destabilizing dream weight.
Chain Together през недялко ще е wild. Не, няма такива псовни никога няма да сте слушали, разбирате ли? В смисъл, нямате нужда от това нещо в живота си. Чак от такива псовни нямате нужда. Какъв мастермайнд ти е прави? Очевидно голям екип. И точно затова слушаме девелопер коментарите, защото сме впечатлени.
So coming up with the way to actually make the portal and a portal make sense for the player was a really tough problem. And we iterated on this for weeks with input from all different team members. So it was really a group effort. But it was important to get it right because this is one of the pivotal moments in the game. And then another thing we had to do was figure out how to make the world degrade in a way that fit with the game's look and feel. And one day while prototyping, I just happened to accidentally assign a light map texture to one of the walls in the room, and I really liked the way it looked. Light map textures are textures generated by the engine offline to help with realistic lighting. So anyway, we ended up using this. So when the world degrades, the shafts of light breaking through the walls into the rooms, and that effect is actually driven by a light map texture from one of the other levels.
Портал и на портал. Тази игра кога е създадена? Нямам идея. Докторе, кога е създадена тази игра? Трябва да има черна точка 25+.
This spatio-temporal moment of wonder is brought to you by the very long but invisible rectangular portals tucked behind these empty windows, looking out into other parts of the level you may soon travel to.
This final level was designed with the idea of removing depth perception entirely. All the visuals are flattened.
Това е много яко.
Years ago, I had
5 ноември е готина дата.
I found myself in a place where I understood that each of us
2020.
begins as nothing.
Един месец и 5 дни преди Cyberpunk.
It was shaped by seeing it exactly the way I wanted to. White space.
Добра игра. Предполагам, че големите сайтове са я оценили много високо. Тук къде ми се пада вратата? Недалеко. Смяташ ли да стримваш втори мода на GTA 6? Да? Що за въпрос?
But in white space, I also faced the greatest challenge I could imagine. Because with a lifetime of life itself behind me...
Since the universe that the players inhabit is seemingly created in almost a kit-bash way while within Somnasculpt, it was a unique challenge to show the players truly a peek behind the curtains of the system. A blank canvas, a scratch document, an empty sticky note with some notes, little things creatively interspersed throughout. I think I derived some of the inspiration for what happens when you're playing a VR game and suddenly the game crashes to a totally white space. That feeling of disorientation, even though you understand the world around you is an illusion.
Много е добро девелопер коментарите. Нямам спомен да се стримва стори мод на някой... What? Изигравал съм Vice City, половината San Andreas и GTA 5 на стрим. Какво стана? Това е толкова яко. Това наистина е много добро. Са ли бяха шахматните фигури? Не. Така, и тук от червената страна излизам веднага и назад. Колко се въртях докато го намеря?
You're well beyond dreaming now, and further out than anyone has ever come back from. But we hope that you won't get discouraged. After all, if this is a place of pure perspective, isn't it also a place where a different point of view could make anything possible? Isn't that why you came here?
Ох, човек, колко съм тъп. Това съм сигурен, че толкова много хора са се чувствали толкова тъпи, като са го фейлвали толкова много пъти. Тук мисля, че няма нужда. Да. То пъзъл нямам идея как трябва да се мине. Аз си го минавам с моята механика. Нямам идея дали е предвиден за моята механика. What? Удари го в стената, бе. А най-странното е, че тука просто трябва да паднеш. Толкова търсих по стените някаква врата. Epilepsy warning! Че играч ме накара да си стана от леглото и да я довърша. Тук вече да казваме ли... Да бе, аз не играя играта. Аз я изиграх апо. Това е девелопър коментарито. Минавам я за втори път. От другата страна на бялата врата има такова сирене като стъбичка. Аха, еми, моята механика не е никак лоша. Особено ако не я фейлна. Сега тук каква беше вратката да изляза? Не е тука.
Hello. My name is Dr. Glenn Pierce, and by now you may have realized that all of this has happened exactly the way it was supposed to.
This last section was something that Logan and I worked together on for a really long time. When I first saw it, I had this great feeling for how it could be like a really nice, impactful moment. And so I got this really kind of awe-inspiring, inspirational music to put behind it. And Logan absolutely hated it. I stuck to my guns and asked him to stick with it for a while and play it for a couple of days, a couple of weeks, and see how things went. And he ended up totally coming around to my side of thinking. Initially, we were unsure if we went for this kind of pure feeling that it would just be really hokey. And I ended up reading this essay on television written by David Foster Wallace. And it really kind of encouraged me to kind of get over that sort of postmodern, too cool for anything aesthetic, and to just really go gung-ho into sort of rewarding you for ending the game by giving you something really nice.
This level was created early on. I liked the idea of giving the player some time to think about their journey rather than ending the game immediately, and I knew film-like cuts would be perfect for revisiting their experience through the game. Chris initially suggested a song for reference, and at first I hated it. I kept listening to it though, and eventually grew to love the song. Matt came up with a track that is even better than the reference material, and it fit perfectly.
Your life will always be a struggle, and you will always have problems. But today, you had the chance to see things differently. Even though it meant facing obstacles that seemed impossible at first, you thought outside the box, and you overcame them. Because you saw things from every angle, You understood them
Като
for
не
what
си
they
спал дълго
really
време,
were.
получава ли си халюцинации? Да.
Because you kept moving forward, no matter how far off the path you were
Случвало ми
told
се.
you were headed, or how unexpected it became, you found your way.
Случва ми се да почна да халюцинирам, след като много време не съм спал. Абсолютно ми се случвало, като бях дете. Не, я бирах за половин час. Сериозно спидрен си трябва за половин час.
In a few minutes, you'll be back in the real world, and some part of you will say that none of this was real. So, how could it have really meant anything? But, just like the power of perspective itself, it will have been as real as you believed it to be. All you've got to do is wake up.
Доста добро девелопър коментари, това ми хареса. Мултиплеер ли? Battle Royale. Challenge other players in new levels to earn experimental dream coins. Biggest fan finish the game with the developer commentary enabled. Ага. Взех achievement. Трейдинг cards. Феноменални трейдинг карти. Синдрома на Алиса в страната на чудесата. Я да видим. Отивам да си стопля ядене. И това ще си го пусна да ми го чете на слушалките, докато си действам ядене. Някаква психоза. Дай да видим. Доста добро е сами написи. Това е легит.
Разбира се, Пресли. Ето едно обстойно, красиво и аналитично есе за синдрома на Алиса в страната на чудесата, in Wonderland Syndrome. Написано така, че да звучи едновременно научно и литературно. Като текст, който можеш да използваш и за сериозно представяне, и за размишление. Синдромът на Алиса в страната на чудесата, когато реалността се разтяга като сън. Има моменти, в които светът около нас се пречупва. Времето се забавя, а пространството се изкривява. Телата се смаляват, стаите се оголемяват, гласовете звучат отдалечено, а собствените ни крайници изглеждат чужди. В тези мигове не сме луди, не сънуваме, но и не сме напълно будни. Именно това преживяване описва така нареченият синдром на Алиса в страната на чудесата. Неврологичен феномен, който кара човека да възприема реалността като огледало, в което всичко е вярно, но изкривено. Произход на името и първи описания. Името на синдрома е вдъхновено от едноименния роман на Луис Карол «Алиса в страната на чудесата» (1965). В него малката Алиса преживява поредица от нереални събития, сред които се смалява до размер на мишка или пораства като къща. Поразително е, че самият Луис Карол, според изследванията на някои невролози, вероятно е страдал от подобни зрителни и пространствени изкривявания, причинени от мигренозни пристъпи. Именно личният му опит е вдъхновил някои от най-странните сцени в книгата. Първото медицинско описание на синдрома е направено през 1955 година от британския психиатър Джон Тод, който забелязва у пациенти с мигрена, епилепсия или вирусни инфекции, изкривено възприятие на пространството и тялото. Така синдромът започва да се нарича Тод's Syndrome, макар че литературното име Alice in Wonderland Syndrome остава по-популярно и символично. Симптоми и проявления. Основната характеристика на синдрома е диспропорционалното възприятие на реалността. Това включва микропсия. Предметите изглеждат по-малки, отколкото са. Макропсия. Обратно, предметите се виждат по-големи. Телепсия. Усещането, че нещо е по-далече, отколкото е. Пелепсия. Усещането, че нещо е по-близо. Метаморфопсия. Формите и контурите на обектите се изкривяват. Разтичат се пред очите. Понякога хората с този синдром усещат, че тялото им се променя. Ръцете им стават огромни, главата им тежи като камък или напротив се усещат безтелесни, почти прозрачни. Наред с това може да настъпи промяна във възприятието на времето. Минутите се разтягат като часове или обратно, мигът изчезва без следа. Aethelthryth. Причини и връзки с други състояния. Не е самостоятелна болест, а по-скоро симптомен комплекс, свързан с различни неврологични и психични състояния. Най-често той се проявява при мигренозни пристъпи. При много пациенти синдромът се появява като аура преди болката. Епилепсия на теменните дялове, инфекции, особено вирусът на Епстейн-Бар при деца, употреба на халюциногенни вещества, тежко изтощение, стрес или липса на сън. Невроизобразителните изследвания показват, че е възможно временно нарушение на кръвоснабдяването в задната част на мозъка, особено в зоните, отговарящи за пространственото възприятие, париеталния и темпороокципиталния дял. Това води до грешно обработване на сигнали от очите и тялото, при което реалността се преживява като сънна халюцинация.
Не ви говоря, защото не мога да дам пауза.
Психологическо преживяване и екзистенциален контекст. Най-интересната страна на синдрома е не медицинската, а екзистенциалната. Човек, който го преживява, започва да се съмнява в собствената си сетивност. Вижда, но не вярва на очите си. Усеща, но не може да разчете реалността. Това води до дълбоко чувство на отчуждение и самосъзерцание. Едно почти философско раздвояване между аза и света. В известен смисъл, синдромът на Алиса е не просто болест, а метафора за човешкото съществуване. Ние постоянно възприемаме реалността през изкривени огледала. Емоции, страхове, травми, желания. В това отношение, страданието на пациентите с синдрома е само по-крайна форма на онова, което всички ние изпитваме. Разминаването между света такъв какъвто е и света такъв какъвто го виждаме. 5. Лечение и прогноза. Няма конкретно лекарство за АИВС, защото то е симптом, не заболяване. Лечението е насочено към основната причина. Например, контрол на мигрената, антивирусна терапия или регулиране на съня. В повечето случаи симптомите са временни и преминават напълно, особено при деца и юноши. При възрастни е възможно да се появяват епизодично, особено в моменти на стрес или изтощение. 6. Поглед отвъд медицината. Феноменът Алиса е напомняне колко крехка е границата между възприятието и реалността. Той поставя въпроса: ако сетивата ни могат да ни лъжат толкова убедително, можем ли изобщо да говорим за реален свят? В този смисъл синдромът е не само медицинско състояние, а философски символ. Образ на съзнанието, което се бори да остане будно сред калейдоскоп от изкривени отражения. Както Алиса сама казва в книгата Open Quote, понякога вярвах на 6 невъзможни неща преди закуска. Close quote. Може би хората с синдрома на Алиса просто вярват на едно невъзможно нещо повече, че реалността не е задължително такава, каквато я виждат останалите. Заключение. Синдромът на Алиса в страната на чудесата е мистична среща между неврологията и поезията. Той показва, че човешкият мозък е не просто орган, а вселена. И че в тази вселена понякога границите на възможното се размиват. Реалността, колкото и стабилна да изглежда, винаги може да се превърне в приказка или в кошмар. Но може би именно в това се крие чудото на съзнанието. Способността му не само да възприема, но и да преосмисля света, дори когато той се разпада пред очите му. Искаш ли да направя и втора версия в по-художествен стил, написана като личен разказ на човек, преживял синдрома, нещо като литературна изповед или монолог? Би било страхотно за контраст с това по-научно есе.
Между другото, без да се правя на интересен, това нещо ми се случва безброй пъти. Никога не съм му обръщал внимание, но има един момент, в който гледам ръцете си и все едно не виждам част от тялото си. Все едно гледам нещо, което не е мое. И едно странно чувство на откаченост. Все едно не са моите ръце това нещо. Много е странно как да го опиша. Никога не съм му обръщал внимание, но ми се случва сравнително често. Случва ми се и на мен. Да. Ако е често срещано, аз никога не съм сял да го говоря с никого, но ми се случва сравнително често и сега го припознах в това есе. Ако по някакъв начин е свързано с кръворосяването на части на мозъка, е напълно възможно да се случва така илюзия. Но много странно чувство.
Дай. Дайте на дебелия. Дай. Дайте на дебелия.